Hello, hello, and welcome on into another Monday Live with the Whiskey Crusaders. I'm Will.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Matt.
Today we're joined by Shay from Wild Turkey. But before we get to that, Matt, who's in the chat with us already?
All right, let's see here. This is my phone line. As usual, the phone likes to jack up when it starts for whatever reason because it's awesome. All right, we got Yo Jimbo, we got Wheels, we got our buddy Jason the Mash and Drum, Irish Whiskey Yoda, Donald Rance is in here, Robot Scott, Mike Meyer, Ashley Campbell, Richie Z. Let's see here. Of course, it's them, Trev Wilson, and Barn Doors in here. And I know it's early for everybody, an hour earlier than usual, so I'm sure the notifications probably just went to everybody, so I'm sure we'll pick up a bunch more. Because usually there's like 45 to 50, so. Yeah, because it's just starting even to go on mine, so let's skip the lovely ads and all that crap, so, Okay, so tonight is going to be a really cool night about food science, and this is what Shay does for a living, which is awesome. She's going to give us all the cool nerdy stuff on this. So, Shay, you want to talk about your background and all that stuff, and we'll jump into it.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Shaylyn. Shay is much easier to say, so go for it. Go for that. And if you guys have questions throughout, feel free. It looks like there's a chat over here that we can communicate. I'll answer what I can. Of course, not everything. I can't talk about everything, but yeah. So I'm Shaylyn. I've been with Campari. So Campari is the parent company that owns Wild Turkey and Russell's Reserve, as you guys, I'm sure, well know. And I've been with Campari for 6.5 years, almost 7 years, beginning of next year. So I came on board. I'd had some research and development background. I majored in food science in college. And I'd basically been developing baby food and MREs for any military folks. And had the opportunity to jump into alcohol, which was going to be, I was thinking quite a bit different than MREs and baby food. And I was right there.
Big improvement.
Yeah, our shelf life tastings are much different. Yeah, so I guess for me, I have always loved food, been obsessed with food. My whole family is that way. And it wasn't really until college, because I grew up in a family where we all had these super sensitive taste buds and sense of smell. And it's just very normal to like pick up something and smell it, right? Like, that's just like what your family, if that's all you know, then you think that's normal. So I went to college. I lived with 7 girls, junior and senior year. And I remember this distinct memory of like calling out smells or whatever, doing like what I knew it was normal in my world, and then being like, this is not normal, Shaylyn. Like, oh, okay. That's where I really began to realize, like, okay, like I have, this is a bit of a superpower. So anyway, fast forward, not knowing that would eventually become my career, but yeah, so I majored in food science. I knew that I wanted to do research and development. I got this opportunity at Campari, and basically right away started realizing how this senses come into play. So and I say it's such a mixture between, it's not just science. I mean, it's a lot of science, but it's a lot of art. So it's a very specific approach, and everybody has a bit of a different one. Everybody that, is in any sort of R&D role, I'd say. But pretty quickly realized that it was going to be fun. And that nose is going to come in handy.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not a whole lot more important things in whiskey than that, to be real honest.
Yeah.
Without that, it's pretty much a pointless endeavor. Don't even know why you're bothering. So.
Yeah, about 70% of taste is smell. So that's why right now you're seeing with COVID and people that are having these lingering effects, or even, your average cold, when your nose is stopped up, you can't taste. And I mean, for me, if I can't taste, like, it's just not as enjoyable, because I'm sitting there, like, even with food, it's, if you've ever heard of kind of like, I forget the exact term, retronasal smell. So like, even when you're drinking your whiskey and you're kind of volatilizing in the back of your throat, a lot of those more volatile compounds, you can actually taste them through the back of your nose as they kind of go up the back of your nose. And that's such a different experience than what first hits your tongue when you first taste something. be it whiskey or food or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have that when you are sick. So
no, yeah. I guess you probably run to the emergency room or I guess the doctor anytime you're sick, because I mean that's your entire job.
Yeah,
that must be like crazy.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Do you take anything in case you do get like you are stopped up? Do they have some magical cure for you that'll unstop you, or are you just out of luck?
And I, when one of us is sick, it's like, okay, like that's it. Like I can't really do much today. It's a paperwork kind of day, because it completely takes away the experience.
Yeah, what's the point of making decisions when you're going to second guess that decision anyway?
Oh, right. Exactly, right. And then actually, what happens is when you're sick or when you have any of your senses numbed like that, the sensation or the perception is that some other things get turned up, right? So like bitter, you might still be able to perceive bitter, sweet, sour. Those aren't flavors; those are sensations. And when you're tasting, and if you have a cold or something, like those something becomes more bitter than it actually is. So your perception is off. It's and you really could make mistakes if you made decisions with that.
Yeah.
But
do you think your perception is off, or do you think that things get skewed in different directions? Do you think that sour maybe gets turned up while sweet gets turned down, or do you think everything is just kind of muted and things just seem unaligned?
Yeah, no, I think the right. I don't know exactly. I would think that it's more of the second thing you said, where because your other senses are gone, what senses you do have. You hear about like Stevie Wonder, if you've ever heard those really cool stories about when he was a kid and he could hear like a mouse in the class. I don't know if you ever read that story, but it's really crazy. Mm-hmm. The teacher knew that if everybody was quiet, he could hear the mouse in the class because his sense of hearing was so strong and acute. It's kind of like that, but it's not quite as cool.
All right, we got a question here from John. It says, any way to adapt to tastings in a post-COVID world if you can't smell worth allergies or any other way to taste? I think not.
I don't think so. I mean, I do have a family member that has had COVID and is now 5 months into not being able to smell. So I do have some personal experience with this. I know that there's such thing as like, and I'm sure this would apply in the whiskey world, like in any capacity. So basically, if you no longer recognize this as, let's say this is like lavender infused or something, and I tell you, you can't smell it, but yeah, I say this is lavender, and then you kind of make a mental note.
It's almost like retraining yourself how things smells.
Yes, I've heard that as one approach you can try.
That's
I don't know.
Wow.
Get there, but
yeah, I've got a cousin. She can't
smell is mostly. Sorry, Matt. Smell is mostly tied to memory. So I mean, that's really odd that it would just take away that memory sensation of bringing you back to the last time that those smells encountered your nasal.
Right.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so true. I mean, we've all been in that scenario where like you are out and you walk by someone and you smell the perfume or something and it took you back like 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, whoa, you actually feel like you can actually feel whatever feeling that maybe that evokes or emotes that you had forgotten. Yeah, smell is extraordinary. And it's certainly something that is helpful in the lab and is helpful when creating new profiles and whether it's bourbon and you're actually blending the bourbon, or if it's, we're going to talk about vodka. So vodka has flavors in it, and flavors are entirely, compounded in order to create that experience that you're seeking.
Well, speaking of blending new brands, we got Longbranch poured.
Yeah.
You want to start us off with a little bit of Longbranch?
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, Longbranch. So this was a fun project that was done a few years ago. You guys may have heard of Matthew McConaughey.
That's why he's on the phone.
I met him one time. It was really nice, but his wife was nicer. She was actually really sweet.
Typically how it goes. So.
Yeah. So anyway, and the reason, so we're going to talk about the juxtaposition. So at Wild Turkey, we have one of the unique things about Wild Turkey is that we only have one mash bill. So there's one rye mash bill and there's one bourbon mash bill. A lot of these other brands, there's plenty of mash bills. So by the time you distill and you go into the barrel, like you already have nuances amongst those different barrels because you have a different mash bill and you have different percentages of grains, and it brings out different flavors. So because we only have one mash bill, and that's something that's really near and dear to the DNA of Wild Turkey, it makes it extremely challenging at times in order as an innovator to try to come up with new flavors to satisfy the different, all the different projects and the different things that we're trying to do. So you have to be really creative. And one of the things that I wanted to show, and actually if you take Longbranch, try that, and then if you take Rare Breed, those are from the same mash bill. And that's just showing you the difference between ultimately proof and obviously, Longbranch talks about it, the filtration process that it undergoes. So what filtration can do, and the different flavors that emerge based on, one of the amazing things is just based on proof and how the more water you add, essentially, the different flavors that emerge, different smells, rather.
How does that work exactly when you are proofing it down? What flavors are you looking for? Like when you create a Longbranch, what are you doing to figure that out more or less when you're going for that flavor profile?
Yeah, it depends on, some projects might be driven more on, we want a lower proof, we want a higher proof, and some are more flavor driven. And ultimately, until let's say, if you have the luxury of it coming out of the barrel pretty high, just depending on where in the warehouse it was, a slew of factors. If you are able to pull it out at 120 or something, and then, add water 2 proof points at a time and lower it 118, 116, 114, you can really see some patterns start to emerge. So overall, the lower you get, you're going to get more into your light florals. You're going to get into your more green notes, fruity. Up in the higher proofs, it tends to be more oaky, woody, spicy. So each, depending on it's not always formulaic, but a lot of times you can get a good balance just by playing with the water and understanding, at what point that particular profile shines the best.
Makes sense. We also want to give a shout out to Adam, who is the reason we have Shay here is because of Adam. So he's in the chat. Thank you, Adam.
Adam.
All right. So
is the Longbranch run through the maple after the fact? After it's been barreled, or is it before it goes into the barrel?
Yeah, it's after.
Okay, that's what I thought. So unlike Tennessee whiskey goes in before.
Right.
Before.
And the thing with that, if you wanted to play around with that, you'd have to start years ago, because you have to give all that time to age, and that type of thing is really cool. But a lot of times, it's more after the fact, like what can be done post-aging.
Okay, we got a question from Ash who says, oops, wrong one. There we go. Says, do you prefer to add ice or room water temperature to your pours?
That's a great question. I prefer room temperature. So just like we were talking about with proof and water, very similarly, and I give the example of if you've ever been to Dairy Queen, you get a Blizzard, and if you get M&Ms in it, for me, it's not that enjoyable of an experience because the M&Ms are just crunchy and they're sweet, but they don't have chocolate flavor. Like that chocolate doesn't burst like it does when you're eating a piece of room temperature or even slightly warmed up chocolate, and you get the whole slew of flavors. Exact same thing for whiskey. for me. I would prefer to understand exactly what that entire profile looks like without having that cold suppress some of the notes and therefore making it unbalanced.
Yep.
And there's a time and a place for putting a nice cube in there. But if you're really trying to get the essence of it, like I would say try both and then start out with it, for sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you guys? Do you guys like to drink with ice or room temperature?
No.
Neat.
Yeah, just
There you go.
I like to add water to whiskey to see if it unlocks and things like that.
Yeah.
Open things up.
Opens things up.
Yeah.
I don't typically wait though. I just drop in a drop to see if oils kind of separate. Is that appropriate? Is that inappropriate?
No, that's really interesting. Yeah. Especially if it's a non-chill filtered whiskey, it has more of those oils in it, the fats, and so that's a really cool demonstration actually, because the oil will disperse and you'll get you'll just get a different. I'm not exactly sure. I would say you would just get a different experience by homogenizing the oil by adding the water.
There'll be no shots of Malort. Malort is disgusting. Everyone, okay. You've had Malort before, right?
Matt needs to smile.
God,
do
thing.
Malort.
What is it? Malort?
You ever had Malort?
No.
Don't.
Because you're super sensitive, you really hate it. It's
Plain
super bitter and super nasty.
It's like spraying your mouth with lemon pledge.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's from Chicago. It's awful. No, I don't even know why they create that.
Is
crap.
it what is it? What kind
So
of
it's herbal liqueur.
Oh.
It's like a wormwood liqueur. It's nasty.
Yeah. So flavors. Flavors can be bad.
Are you making any wormwood vodka?
Sorry?
You're not making any wormwood vodka, are you?
Not currently, no. That sounds very interesting though. Yeah, flavors can be, especially citrus, so they oxidize super quickly and it can go bad quick. In fact, what happened? One of the things this job did to me is it ruined all of my childhood. All of my childhood treats, because I look back and I think, I mean, this is kind of jumping topics, but so a lot of flavors are, let's say a citrus flavor, it's composed of 20 to 200 different compounds. So if you were to take a lemon flavor and break it apart, you could pull out all these different compounds that comprise as a lemon. And then there'd be some compounds in there that are also common to a lime or to an orange. But it's that unique combination of compounds in that exact ratio that make a lemon what a lemon is. And there's certain components in there that are more susceptible to oxidation and pretty quickly goes from fresh to rancid. And what happens is a lot of these companies, so for instance, Sprite. Sprite is, and I was told this, as a demonstration from a flavorist, from an actual flavorist at a flavor house. And that is that Sprite uses like an oxidized lemon, because what happens is if you put something like Sprite on the market, and it's not just Sprite, this would be like any soda company basically. You put it on the market, and then if it changes 2 months later, the consumer is like, wait, it went from this to this. So basically what they did is they introduced it already oxidized to the consumer. Consumer starts to love it because they don't know any differently. So it's the same thing with your Skittles. It's the same thing with your lemon heads. That's about lemon heads. If you're familiar with that candy, is about the most oxidized type of lemon you can get. Pledge specifically gets the whatever the flavor houses don't want. They're like, you can have our scraps, our garbage. Awesome. But it's super stable at that point because it's already broken down. So that is so when I get a project where they're like, we want a fresh lemon, it's like, that's hard to do. Like, yeah, anyway, that was a bit of a subject change, but
it's interesting.
It's really that's awesome. That's actually really interesting just in general where that all goes. Man, that really, like you said, that changes direction how you think about the world.
Oh yeah. And like I said, a lot of my candies that I used to love, I'm like, I can no longer do.
Yeah. All right. So John wants to know: is there a flavor that you would just not go away, like sambuca or licorice? Is there any flavors that?
Can you put that question back up?
Sure.
I think I missed it. Is there a flavor that you had that would just not go away?
Have you ever had a drink or a flavor that just kind of hung around in your palate that just you couldn't get?
Oh, that lingers, like
Yeah.
Like Malort.
For me, anything. I'm extremely sensitive to anything. Like I hate beets. Like I can't eat anything like beets that has like that dirt note. And actually, as a molecule, that molecule is super heavy, and so it sticks around your tongue, and it actually like binds and stays around for longer. So if I have something that has a little bit of that in it, even if it's like a whiskey that's just was on the bottom floor, and you know that sticks around forever. Like it
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
What are your thoughts on peat?
Yeah, that's my next question.
Peat it's a little strong for me.
Does that stick around? Does that affect your bourbon the next day?
Yeah. Sorry, what do you mean by affect my bourbon?
Okay, sorry. I've noticed that my palate the day following a heavy peat night, like if I were to drink Lafroig or Ardbeg one night, the next day my palate is different. I don't taste the same the next day. I was wondering if you had experienced anything like that.
That's because you put that disgusting stuff in your mouth and you ruined it.
I love
Just a lie.
No, that's really interesting. Smoke. I don't think smoke is as what would not stick around as long as like the I'm calling peat smoke for the sake of simplicity, but I don't think it would stick around quite as long as like that musty. But honestly, I can't recall necessarily. The only thing that I feel like I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I still have that flavor in my mouth is like super sulfury foods like onion or garlic. We've all had that experience, I'm sure, you know, if you have some sulfur with a lot in it. But the next morning you're like, wow, like this is going to be.
You can taste your breath.
Yeah. When I was telling Matt and Adam, when I spoke to them about a month ago that, you know, at my job, like there are many things that I can't do, like wear perfume, or, you know, when we're tasting, like you would not have wanted to have onions that day or garlic or any sort of dairy product like cheese, or anything really fatty like salami, like that would coat your mouth and that would, you know, obscure your ability to taste. There's a whole slew of things. I'm sure we've all accidentally discovered them. It's not a huge secret. Smoking cigarettes, obviously, that's a huge one.
Spicy foods.
Yeah, spicy food absolutely could do that. Yeah.
So do like peppers and stuff really bother you, I assume?
No, I actually really, really love spicy food.
Okay. Does that mess up your thing?
I think I'm sensitive to them, but I just love it. Like there's some sort of weird, they
doesn't stop you from having it.
Sorry.
It doesn't stop you from having it.
No.
Do you have to wait a day? Usually go back to whiskey after like hot peppers or anything, or doesn't?
No, nothing like that.
Okay. We have a thing here from Mark. Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate that.
Is that going to be tonight's food?
Drink Malort. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Mark.
So you're talking about sulfur notes. So actually, what a good point. What about sherried scotches? Some people find a sulfur note. Of course, most of us really like it. Some people don't. Does that bother you at all? Like sulfur, like sherry cask scotches? Or do you not really deal with a lot of that?
I'm honestly not familiar. I haven't had that, but I tend to be thrown off by anything that's too out of balance. Like I feel like people that are like my boss, for instance, he's very sensitive, and he too will like he doesn't eat like pizza or like Italian food because he just says like the garlic is completely. Well, he'll eat real Italian food, like when he goes to headquarters on Milan or whatever. But not all of us are that fortunate to get to go there. So he just will tell us that he's like, oh, it's just completely out of balance. So I think
interesting.
If it's super, so you said it's sherry cask finish. So does the sherry cask though subdue it a little bit? I could see that happening.
Well, it just depends. Some people find a sulfur note depending on the scotch.
And depending on the type of sherry barrel.
Yeah, it's from sherry itself. It just depends. Like,
Oh,
do you
yeah.
ever drink sherry at all, or no? Or does that?
Yeah, well, I did we did a Master's Keep that was
That's right.
in sherry casks, and I got to know sherry pretty well. And there's an interesting there's some interesting notes in there. Less sulfury, more antiseptic, I would call it, in sherry itself that I picked up on. And I didn't necessarily like that's in all sherry. I didn't love that, but I think it can get balanced out over time.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, we'll have to solve your sherry scotch problem. We'll have to get you some of that.
I was going to say, Matt, we might want to take some notes and send Shay a care package.
I love that.
Expand her.
You know.
Yes, absolutely. Because what? And, Glenn Grant's one, I guess, the one you guys own for Campari, right?
Yeah, and I would say it's not super like. I've had more peaty scotches.
Okay, more peaty than. That's really interesting. So, do you like peat or not really?
Well, no, that's what I was like. It's not. I like it, but not overpowering. Just like I don't like mezcal because it's just too strong.
I'll have to get it in a minute.
But maybe in a cocktail, if diluted enough, then you get it just at that right amount that it would work a little better.
Very cool. Yeah, we'll have to get you some scotch. Where are you going? Sorry, my daughter's going to the bar. Hold on one second. I have to help her out.
Your daughter's going to the bar.
What's your cat's name?
She's hiding.
What's your cat's name?
The one right here is Weasley. And then there was a black and white on the camera earlier. She's new. Her name is Tonks. But,
We found her outside the other day.
yeah, this is our bacon kitty.
Here.
He's our little mascot.
That's funny. My husband loves
She's
cats.
here every live stream with us.
Yep.
Munching on bacon.
Asking for the bacon.
Sorry. No, I hid the remote from her in here, so that's what
Ah.
I'm looking for.
I'm gonna pour some rare breed. What are we doing next?
Yeah,
That's
so
fine.
and I would suggest putting them side by side, smelling
Okay.
understanding that those come from the same mash bill, and that's the power of about all the tools I have in my toolbox for creating new products. But I think
So, okay, I guess
they're
switching
so different.
Weasley.
Sorry, Matt. What did you say?
switching to that. So what? Okay, so these obviously come out straight out of the barrel as is, as far as the barrel proof goes. What are you? Is it a totally different part of the warehouse you're looking for with those usually, or is it just you come upon them? How does that usually work?
So
As far as going from
products,
things to windows.
those types of products were, around before I was.
Okay.
But my understanding is that, there's a certain profile that they found and decided to maintain. And so obviously the goal is consistency and that, every bottle of rare breed, which has changed proof over the years, it's gone up, but it sticks to whatever characteristics that first wowed them. So,
Yeah. Rare breed's a staple in our house.
Yeah.
We constantly have a bottle on hand.
I mean,
That was my first
like,
premium whiskey ever purchased was rare breed. So the original container's right there of my first one that I ever had. So I still have that.
oh wow, that's cool. Yeah, I know Eddie is a big fan of
The
what
proof.
was it, like 108 proof, or right around 108.
Which is what that one is. Yeah, that's what that one is the old proof.
What was it? 108?
I think so.
108 point something.
Well, ours is 116.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what this one is.
original.
The original one here.
Because it was 112.8, and then when I 16.8.
Yeah, this is the 108.2 back when it was that one. So yeah, this bottle's obviously significantly older.
That's cool. Yeah, that was his. I think that was his fave.
Yeah, that was so freaking good. I was so sad when it ran out. I was like, well, I guess I won't move on to the next proof one. So that's what there is. All right, so Ben is asking, can you talk about blending new Wild Turkey versus old dusty bottles? Do they ever compare those?
Yeah, I know. There similar question came up before. I really no. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't get. I mean, it's only something I know about through people that love Wild Turkey. Like, it's not something that gets talked about actively or that sit around and compare. So no, I think the question is usually what drives the flavor difference. And I think my best educated guess is that it has to do with, completely different, like the process is of course still the same, but over the years, things change. Maybe, you swap out pieces of equipment. Obviously the yeast is still the same, but depending on, if you're from making it in a wood vat to stainless steel vat, like that can make a difference. Where your vats are, is it open fermentation, closed? I believe we've always done open, but there are microbes in the air that can land in those vats, and you have wild yeasts in the air, and then that creates its own their own flavors, and so obviously, like if you switch locations, a lot of that can, just by building a new distillery, which I think the changes were seen prior, but like there's many factors that can go into that, and I really don't know, but it is interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely
still the same.
Do you know if Wild Turkey has changed, maybe like where they're sourcing their corn, their rye from, or has that been fairly consistent?
I don't think that that's changed. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah.
Very fun.
So I think it's just the wood tubs more or less is the bigger factor than anything, just whatever's going on in there over the years.
More barrels and different wood that we're cutting down from different parts of the forest, and I mean, like there's so much that plays.
There's so much. I mean, yeah.
I know we talked like Camp Nelson being vastly different too because of the distance it is away from everything else.
What
I was kind of getting at a little bit was Waterford over in Ireland is playing around with what terroir is doing to whiskey and where the grain is coming from. Does it make a difference? So they're actually keeping their farms separated and testing grain all the way through. So if you're getting corn from, even if you're getting it from the same supplier,
totally,
the producer changed. That's even if it's the same kind of corn, it wasn't grown in the same place. So
right, or like that farmer's probably using different ingredients, or let's say it is the same farm, same location. Maybe somebody built something else. Maybe there's another type of farm that came in down the street, and then now you have cross contamination, and you have different new
silo that blocks the sunlight and it doesn't grow the same at all anymore.
Exactly, or different phytonutrients from there's different fertilizer. Like there's so many aspects. We can only, as a scientist, like that's the type of thing I think about a lot. Is there's like so many factors that go into something, and a lot of times it's very difficult to pin down exact cause. It's usually some sort of synergistic effect or combination thereof.
For the corn you guys use, do you guys use genetically modified corn, or you guys just use regular non-GMO corn? Any idea?
Corn.
Non-GMO, okay.
Yeah.
I know that would definitely be a factor in there, how it would taste for sure.
Yeah.
But even like you said with the soil, and if you have a farm that does use ones that are altered per se, like I say, could get in the soil and simply leak there over time, and God knows what could happen to it. So yeah, that's true. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Too many factors to consider, but different based on the way they taste.
Yeah.
All good, just different.
Right.
All right.
So what else do you want to know about? What are the main?
All of the things.
Yeah, pretty much all of it.
How long does it typically take to nail down and say, okay, this batch is ready? from, okay, it's time, we need a new batch of, rare breed, from that moment until, we got bottles going, about how long does that process take?
Yeah. So, and I maybe skipped over this in the beginning just because, we often leave out important facts, but yeah. So my role is I create all the new products for basically North America. So that's whiskey, bourbon, or obviously bourbon, vodka, tequila, some rum, anything that would be like even a different type of project. Like, so it's one of the cool parts of being on a super small team. Because I work for Campari in a regional role as opposed to like just Wild Turkey. Like where I go to work every day, Wild Turkey, a lot of people just work for Wild Turkey, basically.
Gotcha.
So with that, yes, each project's different, but typically like I would say, I mean, ideally I would like more than a year to work on something because you need that long in order to, honestly, you need longer, but a lot of times it's a year or less. So it's just depending on what the project is.
Well, and how fast the money behind it is trying to get that, trying to get the product back out to market.
Yeah. And then I'm just one component. So I actually have an analogous person to me that's, packaging scientists. So they're the person designing the packaging and the label and the colors and the Pantone and all that jazz. And that's a huge part of it, registering it with the government. And then of course, there's so many moving parts as you guys know, that go into finally executing it and then producing the product. So, I think, yeah, at the end, it's a matter of kind of being there to see it all the way through.
So somebody asked about, would you think there'll ever be a possibility of single barrel rare breeds at all by chance?
Single barrel rare breed. Oh, interesting. I don't know. It's a cool idea.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
So when you come up with a new product, as like I guess Eddie and Jimmy come and say, "Hey, here's what we want," and you just kind of go to like, how long does it usually take for you to go through like the new Master's Keep? Like, how many months did you work on it? What do you look for to find what they're asking you to find? How does that work? That whole process?
Yeah, it just depends on the project, but ultimately, sometimes it's more conceptually driven. Other times it's more, I found this amazing liquid and let's build a concept around it. But yeah, typically takes at least a year. And yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of, you always want to do something new and exciting. So it's a matter of trying to find that project that just really, I guess, concept that fits the liquid. So yeah, like I said, sometimes you find really amazing liquid. Other times it's more, can we find liquid to cater to this concept?
Makes sense. Sorry, my kids are screaming. So
I'll do this thing now.
It's Monday.
Wouldn't be Monday without screaming kids.
And it's a little earlier than normal, so
yeah, they usually have a little bit more time to kind of calm down. I'm gonna go ahead and pour some rare breed rye.
Okay. I'm not a rye fan. He's not really either. But we take it for the team.
It's nice.
Yeah, they make me drink peat too.
So what was the last project that you were working on for Campari?
I'm always working on projects. But the last one the
last thing that actually got put onto the shelves.
A rare breed rye.
Good segue, right?
Master's Keep. Yeah, I can't remember. They came out about the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, rare breed rye. I mean, it's nothing, I think it's one of those really great concepts, and I've seen this a lot lately with like, as I'm talking to more people and understanding what gets people excited, it seems like kind of these more simple ideas. So like, rare breed rye is relatively, it's a simple idea. It's basically rare breed and a rye version, and it's interesting to me that type of stuff resonates with people. But it does. I think there's a lot to be said for just a really powerful, kind of simple, non-gimmicky approach to this really great liquid. And I think that's what rare breed rye is. So it was just a matter of understanding, okay, these are the years we want to use. And then let's, of course, in the lab, and I'm playing around the different ratios of the years in respect to each other. And then there was this aha moment.
So because you have such a consistent program in one mash bill, do you have a pretty good consistency as far as flavor in the barrels?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
But with innovation, like you want variety. You need variety. So depending on where in the warehouse, depending on which warehouse, where that warehouse is located, and then where in the actual warehouse, that's where you get that variation that, like, honestly is super important. And if your warehouse is located near water, it might take on nuances of a more moist environment. If you're up on a hill, you might have more, I mean, this is pushing it a little bit, but you might have more wind and air movement that causes like a faster aging. Depending on how permeable, I guess, your warehouse is and your windows and stuff. But all those types of things go into, different nuances that you find within a barrel.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions that have come by. Here's this one from a little while ago.
Is there a bottle or blend that Shaylyn would like to create for Walter? Good question.
If I said you were in charge of the barrel house for one day, you have one product that you can come up with, what are you choosing to do?
Well, I think I don't like being bound by, like, it must be this proof or it must be this age. So I think, to me, what's truly exciting is to take all of that out of it, just pour a variety of barrels samples, have them in front of me, and just kind of like blindly going into it and understanding, wow, this is exceptional, and it happens to be this proof, and it happens to be this age, and kind of taking it more from that approach as opposed to like, oh, it must be 16 years old and
like this is
10 proof.
This is my lineup. This one's good, and I want it just the way it is, like this. Yeah. Don't alter it. Just put it in the bottle.
Yeah, I mean, I do like playing around because I think that's part of the fun. But blending it. But yeah, ultimately, I'm with you. Like, not adulterating it, and that's what's so cool about bourbon is we have those laws in place that prevent it. And that really is rare. Like any other part of the world, like that's just not the norm. Highly regulated. Is certainly. Sorry.
I was saying, look at Japan. I mean, and what they can do. They can import. They can import from other countries, bottle it in Japan, and call it Japanese whiskey.
Yeah.
It's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, we were fighting the same problem, and I think the Texas Whiskey Association kind of is helping out with that, but calling things Texas whiskey that aren't Texas whiskey. Somebody actually created a board, or somebody actually created an organization to go around and say, here's a sticker saying this was actually made in Texas,
not just
bottles.
So people were saying it was made in Texas, but it wasn't.
Some whiskeys.
There were absolutely some on the market saying that they were made in Texas. Then
or if it was just like aged and it was made somewhere else or something like that.
MTB
and aged here, maybe or maybe not. But
yeah,
there were absolutely things that were produced by and not made by.
Sure.
Bottled by,
but that had Texas on it. Texas Crown is a Canadian whiskey that it's sold in Texas with oil. It's so silly. So
yeah,
garbage. It's just garbage. Sorry, Val's having a bad night.
Here's another one. If you can share such information,
Any more BIB? I mean, there might be in the future. I think it's something that I think that the Master's Keep 7, the Bottled and Bond has been received quite well, right?
Sure.
So
they're gone.
They look around and say, okay, this worked, so perhaps we'll consider again in the future. But it's not that not everything is figured out like that. It's a little more organic than like, oh, it will absolutely be, bottled and bond in the future. So I'd say it's on the table, but I don't know for sure.
I think you did a great job with that one, because that is by far my favorite of all the Wild Turkey Master Keeps you guys have made.
I do like it.
This one's awesome.
We did all 5 of them one night, all 5 releases, and we did them all blind, and the new 17 won.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Matt mentioned that. Was that what you were talking about?
Yes, that's what I was talking. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. From that.
Yeah. That's cool. And they're different. They're very different, So, like if you love sherry, like you might like that one, because it's not too overpowering. But
Eric wants to know what makes a foolproof rye.
I'm not sure what they mean by that.
The rare breed rye.
Yeah. So, it's not my decision, but ultimately, I'd say the decision makers just saw a need for it. I know they listen to the market and they want to know what people are into, and that's where my comment that I just made about like, it's surprising to me that people like. It seems like people just really like kind of relatively simple concepts that just speak for themselves. I would say that Breed Rye was a really like obvious concept to pursue. Enough people are interested in it, and it just made sense. So it's just figuring out if you have inventory, really, at the end of the day.
All right. Here's our next one on the list here.
That's cool. That's a cool question. Yeah, I think the possibilities are endless. But a lot of it is art, honestly. Which I know that's kind of crazy, but now let's say the project like Longbranch, like that's a bit more sciencey. You got to figure out exactly. I mean, there's so many components. Back to the example of the corn we were talking about. Take that same type of thinking and apply it to a filtration process. So you are experimenting with an unending amount of variables. So that really is like literally lab notebook, like that type of like sitting there, watching experiments, that type of thing. But a lot of flavor creation is more of an art. And when I explain it to people, I say it's a lot like music. If you're musical at all, a chord, a 1, 3, and 5, it's a very similar. I'm looking for a very similar thing on your nose. I'm building that profile. I want it to have a bass note. I want it to have a top note. Like it needs to have all of that and be rounded in order to make sense to most people. But as far as tools, yeah, I got a DMA in the lab. It's basically how we tell proof. Turbidimeter. We have a spectrophotometer. I'm probably saying that wrong. Spectrophotometry, basically, and all those types of things. That would be more like in the quality lab, like when they keep up with, doing their distillations, and I've got to say they got more gadgets down there, but I definitely like to play around and get nerdy in there. That answer your question, John?
All right, we've got another one here. We had a lot of them come in here, play catch up.
Yeah, and then I'm not going to talk about future stuff, just so people know. Like, but I mean, over the course of, I've been there almost 7 years. I've played around with a lot of stuff. It doesn't always make sense to launch things that, are even good in the lab. So that's just kind of how R&D works. Like you try a lot of stuff, and you'd like to have a bunch of stuff in your back pocket, and whether or not you wind up moving forward with it, there's a lot of factors that go into that.
It's good to know. I know you're not going to talk about future stuff in general, but
it kind of, I think they might. Yeah, they might. 12-plus-year-old product. I don't think there's like a certain strategy, but definitely I know a lot of the older liquid has been received well. So it's a matter of, like I said, inventory. If you have it, makes sense for that particular project. Like, heck yeah, let's do it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, they're blending mostly based on just ages. They're just grabbing barrels based on age to make these blends, or is it somebody's job over at Wild Turkey to actually create these blends to be more consistent than that? Because I'm wondering, people always talk about dusty bottles being way different, and we've had the experience. We do understand that, you can find some older things that just taste nothing like the newer components. But, it just kind of makes you wonder if all they're doing is just blending it based on proof and age, and they're not actually going for specific barrels to get specific flavor profiles and make, Wild Turkey 101 consistently tastes like Wild Turkey 101.
Well, so you could have a barrel that's, let's say, 12 years old, 105 proof, and you have them in a certain warehouse, and then you go get that exact same type of barrel, 105 proof, roughly, 12 years old, from another warehouse. And you put them in front of you, they're going to taste completely different. Like, or not completely, but they could taste completely different. That's kind of the cool thing. You sometimes there's more consistency than other times, and there's that's kind of the unpredictable nature of and I personally think it's one of the really cool parts, because it's like, okay, nature, do your thing. Let's take kind of this very prescriptive aspect out of it.
Yeah. John's asking, are we headed into any type of allocation issues with Wild Turkey? I don't know. If they have 17 girls sitting in there that they're making decades with,
Yeah.
Hasn't been a problem so far. And the only one I've seen a problem with is this one. That's just because it's been received so well, not because there wasn't enough of it. It's done freaking awesome. Because it used to be, you could easily get it and maybe get a year back or whatever too. It'd still be around. But not this one. This one's done awesome. It's
great. Yeah.
Oh, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, coming into the company, a lot of these, there was not a lot of these lines that were doing a lot of these LTO type things. So now I think it's been a good opportunity to use to make opportunities with liquid. So as far as allocation, I'm not sure.
Okay, I know there's a good question here from.
I was trying to scroll back through and make sure we didn't miss anything.
All right, I'm going to grab this one while we're at it then. Okay, so Ben wants to know, how did the flavor profile of Bond and Lillard, Old Rippy, and WB Sappho come to be at Campari? I know most of the blending was only done by Campari. Did you work on any of those at all by chance?
Yeah. I actually got to, it was pretty cool. I went to a bar out in San Francisco, tasted 100-year-old, literally 100-year-old. That one was, I think, Rippy. I tasted very, very old bottles, so I mostly smelled them. Not just me. There's several people there.
Yeah.
Awesome. And smelled it, tasted it. Talking like the smallest sip, and just made a mental note of what it tasted like. And then ultimately tried to replicate.
That's cool. That's how long did it take you to take several months, or when you just memorize that note, you just kind of know what you're looking for and just go for it? How do you do that?
Well, I mean, it's more like broad strokes. So when you're talking 100-year-old whiskey, I mean, it's totally different type of. I mean, it's just so much more fusily. It's more like rum, and how they used to be. So you take as many notes as you can, and then you look for any sort of liquid that would kind of fit the script, so to speak, for those types of notes that you're looking for.
So you worked on all three of them, I assume.
Yeah.
So when is it now? That series is still going on, right? There'll be another one of those, I assume, at some point. Or
I'm not sure about that.
Okay. That's pretty cool, because I guess was the last one. Well, it was what, batch 2 of the Bond and Lillard? Is that right? Or Saffel the last?
I think Saffel and 2.0 of the Bond and Lillard came out around the same time.
Okay.
I loved those bottles. I don't know if you guys had
I've got all 3. They're cool.
I thought they were so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Those were some of the coolest little bottles.
Oxidation. What was it?
Did you work on the design of the bottles at all?
No. But I was a huge fan. I thought they were really classy.
Yeah, I assume they went back to finding pre-prohibition bottles and based it on that. I assume is what they to get that.
I would think so. I don't exactly know, but that makes sense to me. They look like it, and then the story that the labels themselves tell are just
they're quite cool.
Just it tells its own story. Did I ever think of my full-time job? No, I didn't. Well, I guess I dreamed when I was in college, so food science, I went on a field trip to Brown-Forman, and I was like, the lady that's in charge of sensory there, I was like, that's really cool. I would like to do that. And sensory, is different. Sensory is a different department, but technically. But anyway, I was like, that's what I want to do. And sure enough, this opportunity became available. I think there was a lot, of course, there's some luck that went into it. I think once I got into the role, it definitely felt like such a good fit. But no, I never imagined I'd be doing this. And I feel very fortunate to be able to use my nose for some good.
I just got to say, best college field trip ever.
Yeah, really, right?
Yes. We did a lot of what would we do? We would go to Yum, which I interned there in college, but went to Yum Brands. They own I don't know if you guys Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, Long John Silver's,
Pepsi,
Kroger, all the places. Oh, White Castle, which I know that's not huge in Texas, but it's big around here. Airhead Factory, and then they were Brown-Forman. I was like, that one.
Yeah. that one wins.
All day, or
Are we allowed to drink?
Yeah.
How much?
Oh, thank you, Adam. Yes, that would be great.
That would be cool. I think that's a great idea.
I need something else in my glass, Matt, and I can't read your handwriting. I don't know what any of these other ones say.
The other 2 are tequila and vodka.
Oh, all right.
So if you're ready to move on to vodka, how vodka works, we can do that. If anyone else has any questions about whiskey, we can stay there, or we can move on to tequila and vodka and how those are all made and how she comes up. Which is really cool. Makes it flavor vodka.
Any weeded turkey coming? Well, I mean, y'all still just have the one mash bill, right?
Yeah, we just have one mash bill.
Yep. So no.
So nope. Mexican, no.
How old is the old barrel? Wow. Oh gosh, that's a good question. Well, whether or not there's any liquid in it is another story, but
right.
I don't know. I mean, definitely. I mean, think about decades. I would say in that realm.
20 plus years.
20 something. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. But whether or not it had liquid in it.
Yeah, because decades got 20 in it. Yeah, it's probably not very much. It's in there. That's for sure.
It's very common.
Longbranch itself. Did you find a lot of empties?
Yeah, with when I was there for Master's Keep, when we were dumping. A lot of those were empty.
Oh,
But I mean, it just depends on where they were, and but it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy. They'll just fall apart, like just completely fall apart.
oh, jeez. That's
Like the wood.
well. I
like
guess that makes it easy when the turns to dust.
the wow, the name's escaping me. Like the hoop.
Yeah.
Rusts, and it just the whole like all the staves fall apart. It's pretty crazy to see.
Oh, that's super. Yeah, that's not a good day when you find those. I assume that's crappy.
So explain the bacon to me. How did the bacon come to be?
Bacon and whiskey is the best combination ever.
Yeah.
It cleans the palate. It gives you that nice fattiness that, I don't know.
You don't have the what about the smoke flavor though? I would think that would stick around like we were talking about, no?
I don't think so. I think more importantly, it pairs well with any type of whiskey, whether it be bourbon, rye, scotch, it doesn't matter. That kind of note, the bacon for whatever reason just works with whiskey.
Cool.
And it keeps
I like
you from getting drunk.
Yeah. It's something nice to snack on nights that Matt gives you 28 whiskeys to go through in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's been known to happen.
Yeah, that'll
Yeah.
We had Compass Box night. We had Compass Box night a while back. We went through 28 Compass Boxes in 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, those are rough mornings.
Yeah, you need bacon for days like that.
Yeah.
And
There's
lots
a
and
brand
lots
of bacon
of
I
water.
really like called Wright's bacon.
Yeah.
You guys ever had that?
I've
Wright's
had Wright's.
brand?
Yeah.
Yeah,
With
that's
the-
my favorite.
Yeah, we've gotten that before.
They make
Yeah.
a good thick cut.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I think it's just the mesquite, or hickory. That's my favorite. None of the flavored stuff, but
I'll say I just go with thick cut.
do you like the ones with a lot of pepper on it? I guess that wouldn't be good for whiskey, but
Our buddy Brian over at Pit Face Barbecue makes a really, really great pepper rub that you can put on bacon that makes it really delicious.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, with whiskey, it kind of the spice plus high alcohol we have found
yes,
doesn't work out very well.
totally.
High alcohol
Mm-hmm.
just burns.
The same. I don't know if you ever had anything like a spicy breakfast and then you drink coffee. It's the same thing. It's just just they do not go together. The acidity in the coffee or something it just
Like instant heartburn.
and it's not good. It's like, man, I ruined my coffee.
I always attributed it to the heat, but I didn't think about the acid.
Yeah. And that's one reason we steer clear of spicy foods on Monday nights.
Yeah,
Mondays in general,
we
trying
do that for sure.
because it'll ruin, especially if we're doing a blind or something.
Yeah.
You won't be as sharp. Yeah, I believe it.
So what type of information would you like to talk to us about vodka? If you even are interested in speaking.
Well, I guess I think vodka is interesting because it contains flavor, and there's a lot of misconceptions about flavors. Now, flavor is in everything. Flavor is in your bacon. Flavor. Yeah. I mean, bacon without flavors would taste just like fatty. It wouldn't have much of a taste. Obviously, if you go to a butcher, I don't. They might smoke it, but that's essentially what flavors are. Anyway, I being in this industry and realizing that flavors are in everything, like a kind bar flavors, everything. So it's just really interesting to work with them. And there's these people called flavorists that they work for flavor houses. They're analogous to perfumists. They're exactly like perfumists. They just work with flavors instead of perfume. And they have to study for 7 years. If you get accepted, you shadow, and your study time is 7 years. You have to have extremely photographic memory to understand organic chemistry so well. And then what they do is it's a lot like what I was telling you guys, science meets art, and they take these compounds, which these are their building blocks that have been isolated from a tomato or isolated from a plant or you name it, and they're concentrated, and they take ethyl butyrate and they add that into all these other compounds, and they create a flavor.
to create a long string that has the same chemical factors as that same thing in nature.
Exactly. Now the cool thing is, if I order, let's say give me 20 cherry flavors, depending on what flavors they come from, they're going to be totally different. So there is a huge art component. So like, let's say they know that cherry is roughly X% this, X% that, then they have the ability to go in and put their own creative spin on it and add components that you would not expect, but do a lot for the flavor. And so that's how you wind up with such a variety of different flavors. I mean, like, think about any candy, and like a cherry flavored, I don't know, Skittle could taste very different from a
Cherry flavored Runtz.
Yeah. So anyway, it's that type of concept. And so basically using those flavors and creating vodka, it's to me, it's one of the cool things, because I absolutely pride myself on mimicking as close as I can nature. So really I've created like 10 different Sky vodka since I've been there.
That's awesome.
And ultimately, I go out and I'll buy the fruit, and let's say I did Texas grapefruit. Let's say, and I'll buy it, squeeze it, understand the nuances of that particular whatever I'm trying to achieve, and then find flavors that, again, build that chord that allow me to deliver that grapefruit exactly like as close as you possibly can to when you cut open into a grapefruit. So I think what you have there is I got to do cold brew coffee.
Yeah.
Now that was a fun one. So that's not a fruit, obviously.
No.
And cold brew is, some people love it. But it has a different brewing process than regular coffee, and therefore it tastes different. But that's what this particular project called for. So if you'd like to try it,
it definitely smells like cold brew coffee. Like, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that's dead on. And then you made it alcoholic, which makes it even better.
Yes. So if you mix it with a little bit of like cream liqueur, like a Frangelico, it's pretty good.
We could make that happen. I have Frangelico. That's not a problem.
Nice.
That sounds good. I do. One question, go back to a whiskey, is Mischievous wants to know, how do you think that Texas aging impacts flavors? I don't know how much experience you have with Texas whiskey in general.
Texas whiskey? I don't have. I've tasted a few, but the scientist in me says that's a really hard question to answer, because you would have to make all your variables exactly the same in order to really truly understand. I mean, but if we're talking broad strokes, like, Texas is hotter, right? It's way hotter. So you might have more stringent whiskey, because with heat comes, it tends to pull out the woody components out of the bourbon, out of the barrel more so. So that's just something that comes to mind, but I don't know. That's interesting.
Okay, we'll have to get some more Texas. What Texas whiskeys have you had? Are really not very many.
I had the TX.
Oh, no, that doesn't count. They sourced that. The blend. Are you talking about the TX bourbon, which is awful?
Yeah, I think it was that one.
Ooh, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, don't think Texas whiskey tastes like. That is not what most Texas whiskey tastes like. That stuff is terrible, comparably speaking to anything else, because they use a weird pecan yeast in it. It's bizarre.
Huh.
I am not a fan of that at all. And they were doing some other weird stuff there with their running their stills wrong, and they had some water source issues, and there's a lot of problems there. So I'll send you some actual good Texas whiskey. That's not one of them.
What do you like?
Balcones makes really good bourbon. Iron Root makes excellent bourbon. If you can get stuff from Still Austin's really good. And Delusional makes only single malts, but they're all really good. Any of those are awesome. I'll get you samples of all of those. That way you can get ones that are actually good, and you might actually like them.
Okay.
You know,
you guys notice? I mean, do you notice a huge difference? Like this
Oh,
person,
huge.
the person that asked the question, what I'd be curious what they count as the biggest differences between like average.
So actually, in the chat is Nancy Fraley, so who helped create with Iron Root and with Still Austin. So that kind of answers the question. Yeah, so exactly. It affects the match based on the climate, which is definitely a factor. And actually, Nancy Fraley will be here on the 14th of September, so that'll be awesome to do that as well. All right, so we'll go back to Texas. So, all right, so did you go to this, just went and got a cold brew basically, and then how did you create this? Like, what do you add to this different chemical compounds basically that go together that make cold brew more or less? How does that work? Or is there actual cold brew in it, or how does that work?
Well, yeah. So the flavor thing I was talking about, that's how I actually go about creating the profile. So the flavors themselves would be made from actual cold brew, different types of coffee, that type of thing. And then the flavors that made those flavors, they send me a bunch of different flavors, and then I decide it's actually coffee is actually a very hard flavor because it's very sulfury and it can go bad quickly. And it's very like that fresh coffee note is virtually impossible to find.
Okay.
So then I took these flavors and combined them in a way that would achieve what cold brew coffee is.
That's quite delicious. Did you guys try the cold brew coffee?
Yeah.
It's number one. It's
I don't know. You froze up again. I don't know what the number one is, but they froze up again. Something wrong with the internet at the moment. Hopefully they'll come back in a second.
He's just really thinking at that point. He's like,
yeah, it's very important. It's number one apparently. This doesn't even taste like vodka. Like you would not know that there's alcohol in this.
Yeah, it's kind
really
of
scary.
It's kind of interesting. And if you put it in the freezer, it really is good. And like I said, a little Frangelico. I think the back of the bottle recommends coconut water as well, which could be really interesting. Those lactones from the coconut.
Yep, you're right. Coconut water.
That.
I don't have any of that. But I do have Frangelico. That I can get.
That's a Campari brand.
I will get the Frangelico now. Let's do that.
Do it.
It's right behind here.
For those that may not know, Frangelico is a hazelnut.
Oh, yeah. That's probably good.
The bottle is usually behind every bar. It looks kind of like Mrs. Butterworth, but the taste is not like that. It's not super rich, and there it is. It's actually a monk. That's
we cover liqueurs as actually we covered this on a liqueur series on Saturdays, probably about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So if you guys haven't seen that episode, you can watch it. We're going to mix it with this cold brew. See what we think here. But it is a really cool bottle. Of course, like I said, now do you guys make this one or no? Does Campari make Frangelico?
It's Campari's brand.
Well, I guess good reason then. It's funny because I went back to my old bottle.
Mm-hmm.
The proof was a little bit higher on than this one, but I guess it's changed, over the years or whatever. Are you still back? No. She doesn't. I'll give her this. She's very stubborn. She's unrelenting. She got in trouble and she got the cord taken away to the TV, and she's very angry about it. I guess their Wi-Fi is screwing out completely.
Oh, that sucks. Dang.
Yeah, she's stop. Okay, there they come back. There we go.
I am just pissed off at my Wi-Fi right now.
I don't blame you.
I don't know what's going on. Like it works all day during the day, and then
never any issues. Come on, freaking live and every week. This smells and tastes very, very much like cold brew coffee. This is a home run.
It's not what I expected at all. Like I figured, I've had flavor vodka. This is like actually really good.
Well, thank you. No, and honestly, that's what I'm saying. Like I love the challenge of because I went to college. Like I know what crappy flavored vodka tastes like.
Right.
I mean, and that was like, oh no, like I wanted it to be exactly the experience that when you cut into a piece of fruit or when you have that cold brew coffee, without being too sugary, you know? So anyway, and I was telling Matt, if you put that in the freezer, it really goes down easily, especially if you mix it with a little Frangelico. And it's delicious.
I bet.
Got a bottle in my freezer. So I took it to a derby party last year. I live in Kentucky, so obviously.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
it was a big hit.
I bet it was. Yeah. I'm sure everybody loves this. I need to give it to my wife. I bet she'd like this too. Yeah, I am really shocked that like you said, some of you've had that's like this crappy. They cost like $10 and they're just garbage.
Yeah.
And this is excellent.
So my other favorite one that I've done that I'm really proud of is Bartlett pear.
Okay, I've not tried that.
I've done Honeycrisp apple, Texas grapefruit, Pacific blueberry, coastal cranberry. You like all these names, buzzwords. Let's see. Apricot, California apricot.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
And a couple more, but cold brew was a fun one because it was a deviation from fruit.
Yeah.
So what it says
there
infusions on it. What's the difference between infusions and just a flavored vodka? What's the difference?
So infusion is basically, think of extraction. So we do actually infuse some cold brew coffee in there.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not just the chemical compounds that you're putting in there to try to make the flavor. You're actually putting in cold brew coffee.
Right. Yeah. And then for those that, might be thrown off by the word chemical compounds, and this is something I always like, my heart goes out to the flavor industry because it gets a bad rap.
It's just a small
They're
part.
natural, right? Yeah. So
it's just a small part of the bigger chain.
Yes, exactly. There are such things as synthetic flavors. Those do exist. The next time you go to a gas station, you pick up one of those like beef jerkies or something, like those very packaged products. Read it; it'll say artificial flavor. That is when they take those same chemical compounds and they just derive them in a way that's not from nature, but they're still mimicking nature. So that's the difference. Okay. But natural flavors actually take 1 ton of tomatoes and macerate them and then extract out they actually will distill the tomato and understand what components they can pull out. You can do extractions, you can do distillations. There's a lot of really cool technology using no heat. Anyway, very cool stuff.
Are there any other non-fruit flavors that? Oh, I guess you don't really want to talk too much about future projects. Are you? Okay, guess I can't really ask that question.
All right, well, Donald's got a question about.
I don't want to tie your hands to something.
All right, so the Zuberoka, however you pronounce. I know it's a Polish one. It uses the bison grass. It uses a rye grain, similar flavor. Instead, have you ever done anything similar to that at all?
It contains coumarin, which is a blood thinner. Yeah, they used a rye grain to get similar flavors instead. What process would you? So, I guess the question is to get a flavor similar to
that bison grass. I guess the question is, do you have anything?
I mean, I guess you can just use flavors. I mean, I've gone to flavor houses and asked for like the most crazy flavor just to play around. Like my husband and I love to travel, and like we went to Thailand one time, and I had tried this tea there called ball tea, and it was literally like, think of horchata flavor. Mm-hmm. In tea, and it was like I was like in heaven. I was like, this is so amazing.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah,
amazing. Anyway, I called up this flavorist. I was like, can you do me a favor? Can you please try to replicate this just for me? I just want to see.
She's like us when we go into barrel houses. Give us the funkiest thing you have.
Yeah,
I want to taste it.
And then, only if you'll let me buy it.
Yeah, right. All the funky stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, flavor, and actually it's cool because a lot of these flavor houses, they have entire teams that travel around the entire world, like trying to trap flavors. Like they have like little gas chambers that you put on top of like some exotic flower that only exists in that country, and then they'll get they'll look at all the compounds that are, within that flower and make a copy of it, and then see what they can actually replicate of that in the lab. And maybe they can only replicate 80% because some of those compounds are literally undiscovered, or they're so volatile they're just gone. But
cool.
it's cool. Like,
That's really cool.
That's really cool technology in the world.
Wow, she is on fire tonight.
She's away from the last almost 90 minutes.
Maybe time to step away for a minute.
She's already had a couple spankings. She doesn't care. She's stubborn. Richie Z wants to know: have you ever read Heather Green's whiskey book, Whiskey Distilled by Chance?
No, I haven't.
I didn't know that question.
She's another Texas distiller. Miss Heather is.
Yeah, we're ever on at some point.
I'll have to add it to my collection or my.
COVID kind of messed up that whole plans. We were hoping to have her up here physically in person, and that just got all
COVID happened.
Very cool.
So,
Yeah.
And then the world broke.
Yeah.
We'll have just on a Zoom at this point.
And then that happened.
God only knows we'll have live events anymore.
Soon enough, man. It's gonna happen again. We can't possibly stay shut down forever.
I heard two years till we're back to normal.
I don't think it's ever going to be back to normal per se, but
I think it will.
a semblance of it.
I have faith it will be. Americans are stubborn.
I ain't shaking people's hands anymore. I'm just saying.
You don't like people though.
Yeah.
You didn't like shaking people's hands to begin with.
It's too peoply out there anyway. I have my select people that I like.
All right. You want to move on to the tequilas and talk about how those work?
Sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you guys want to talk. So the reason I brought up tequilas is because this is a brand that I'm super pumped about. This is a Campari brand. It has been for a long time, but it's exploding. Like within this COVID time, the sales are so incredibly off the charts. I mean, I think people are, and it was like that before, but even with the surgence of home delivery and it's just a really great brand. It's now if you're used to, I'll say, if you're used to like a more robust tequila, it's not as it's not going to be the kind that, like, if you've had a bad experience with tequila, I tell people if you've had a bad experience, this would be a great one to try because I think it's like really approachable, very citrusy. Anyway, it's a really cool brand. So know it and stick it in the back of your mind because it's definitely going places. The artwork's super cool. It's that Dia de los Muertos.
It pops on the shelf.
I have to say that if somebody's out there that hasn't had a bad experience with tequila, you're not doing life right. I think everybody's had at least one bad experience with tequila.
This is true. This is very true. So if you're someone that's had a bad experience to the point where you now no longer, which this probably you still do, but there's some people that swear off tequila, or you insert liquor type here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Anyway, I think this is a really good introduction back. There's a reposado, there's an añejo, we even have an extra añejo.
That's actually pretty good. It doesn't.
Reposado?
Yeah, it doesn't attack you like a lot of tequilas do.
No, I'm sorry. This is the Blanco. You taste the Blanco first.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, make sure you get them straight.
Yeah,
They're
the
going to hand you a glass.
Reposado's
I
rest.
don't know what that means. Can you tell everybody what, Blanco and Reposado and Añejo even mean? Just people they understand what it is.
Blanco, I think that's what Americans call like silver. So it's unaged,
Right.
non-aged. Reposado is like less, I think 6 months or less in the barrel.
Okay.
And unlike bourbon, tequila is far less regulated, so it doesn't have to necessarily be. Well, let me see if I know that we play around a lot with different types of barrels. As far as the actual classification, if it has to be an oak barrel, I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head. But it can be a used barrel. That's perfectly acceptable. And then añejo is greater than 6 months. Up till extra añejo is, I forget how many years, but I
want to say 3.
That sounds right. 3 is what I was thinking. So the flavors, of course, you're going to have a lot more of your barrel characteristics, your sweet browns, your oak type flavors.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which a lot of people don't enjoy in tequila.
Yeah.
As a whiskey lover, those are I'm going for those extra añejos.
Yeah.
But talking to people that are just tequila lovers, they're going for blancos or silvers almost every single time. They want to know what the agave is like.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I can see that.
Try that one. That one's really good.
At least adulterated, so I think that tequila is very akin to bourbon in that it's very familial. Like, it's very, the people, I mean, are just so kind and like just so it's very much like a labor of love, and I'd say that's how the bourbon industry is as well, for the most part. So that's one of the other things that I really like about tequila. It's a very cool category.
Yeah,
I like both of those.
Yeah,
cool.
They're both quite gummy. Like,
tequila is not something that I would usually be able to just sit and sip on.
Right.
It's you shoot it or it's not happening. And you gotta chase it, right?
Well, that's the way it was when we were teenagers. That's what we thought.
Well, that's the way it was the last time I had tequila, and I'm 37 years old. Okay. But yeah, I could see myself sitting and sipping on that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can sip on that, and normally it's not something I would think like, let me just sip on tequila.
Right,
yeah,
right.
You think of, I need a lime, I need salt. These are the thought process.
I need margarita mix.
Right.
I mean,
but with even with this, the Blanco, even with it, just no age, no oak.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really clean. I do too. I like the rested. Matt gave us 2 of them. He gave us the Blanco and the Reposado. But even the Blanco to me is just very, very clean.
Yeah, they're both.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and like Sarah said, it doesn't have that like huge kick what you're used to with tequila when you first taste it.
Right. It's not bitey and it's not burning.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't have that burn. The reason for the lime and the salt.
Right.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mezcal versus tequila. I'm a huge fan of mezcal. Somebody in the chat asked. I can't highlight, but mezcal versus tequila. I love mezcal. Sarah hasn't tried one yet. I haven't found any out and about that I'm ready to bring home yet. But yeah, I'm a huge fan. I love the smokiness.
You like smoky things, though.
I do.
Yeah. I think mezcal and like a cocktail or something for me, toned down is good.
Yeah.
But if you guys are Scotch lovers, which I'm sure a lot of people in this group are, I imagine mezcal would be up your alley too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
I like some smoky things. I don't like peated things, but I do like my fair share of smoky things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like I've said before, I'm willing to try anything at least once, or at least smell it. If I can get past the smell, I'll take a drink.
Yeah.
or if Matt's making us.
Or if Matt's making me, because we have to do a video for it or whatever. Stupid Malort.
Have you tried Balcones Brimstone? Okay.
No, I don't have access to these crazy collections like you guys have. I'm stuck in a lab all day.
So no, that's just prioritization. You don't make time for.
Yeah, no. And I tell people I drink a lot at work, so I don't drink a ton outside of work because
can't say I blame you.
I mean, 8 a.m. like you know.
Time to get at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on a computer all day. I don't want to get off work and
Be
get on
the
a computer.
Right.
You know, it's just I get it. Crazy collections.
Well, yes, one of us in here has a.
Matt has
Crazy
a crazy collection.
Does anybody else have any more questions for Shay? Shay does have to work super early in the morning, so we don't want to keep her on super late at night.
Tomorrow.
Yes.
Hey, I mean, I get up at 10 till 6 in the morning, so I hear you. I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm there.
Even during COVID, are you still getting up?
I am still getting up because I like getting off early. So I work from 6 to 2:30 generally, and I prefer to get off early. That way, if I want to nap or something,
Yeah,
I'm in there for dinner, and
yeah, there you go.
and then before school started back, hanging out with the kid and stuff. So now he goes to school longer than I'm at work. So
Richie Z asks, "What's Shay's daily go-to pour?" But again, she drinks all day, so
Wilder.
Well, I mean, honestly, I like rare breed if I'm just gonna have sip on something or good Russells. I like wine.
So we need you to do a Russell's pick for us. That's what we want. You need to do a Russell's pick.
A Russell's pick. That would be fun. I would love that. Eddie's always coming into the lab right after he's done picks, and he's always got cool stories, and it does sound very cool.
Definitely. So Nancy wants to know what kind of coopers do you guys use for the Persona Añejo? Is it from Wild Turkey's portfolio?
They do a lot of that direct experimenting down in Mexico, of course. I know they use whatever is available a lot of times, whether it's our stuff or if they can get something else. And that's part of the fun, is understanding like what different flavors does it impart. So, that's the type of thing when I'm experimenting, I want to know, give me the most options I can have, and then let me see which one is the standout. So, but yeah, typically companies, I know a lot of companies of course, share resources like that when they're within the same parent company.
So when you're going to create like a tequila, like one of these, what are you looking for? Like, what makes you that like this is so much better to drink and doesn't seem to have a lot of off-putting flavors to it? What are you going for is you go just the whole goal to make something that people actually want to drink without, having to mix it with something? I mean, what are you looking for specifically when you do something like this? Well,
tequila, these products are, well established. So the innovation looks, different. Typically, it's going after a certain concept or something. It is kind of similar to bourbon. It just depends on, I know I keep saying this, but it's the truth. It just depends on the project. And if you have the parameters of the project, then ultimately at the end of the day, for me, it's about making it taste good. So no matter what the concept is, I would approach it in very much the same way. I want it to be balanced. I want it to have the DNA of its original product, and then so it's recognizable, but at the same time a little bit of a twist.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed that about Longbranch for sure. Because it has that Wild Turkey fingerprint, but the process that makes it Longbranch really does make it a completely different thing. It's really incredible.
Plus, it involves Texas and Matthew McConaughey, so that was enough. Being good Texans, that was enough for us.
All right.
But that stuff. As soon as it hit the shelf here, that shit flew off the shelf so quick. It was just gone the first go around.
Yeah.
But now, of course, it's on the shelf every day. But yeah, I know when it first came out, it's quite good. I really enjoy the unique difference of that mesquite in there. It's quite cool.
Yeah.
So we got another question from you got it. Okay.
She's asking lots. She wants to know lots about tequila tonight. Controlled maturation. Do you know anything about the maturation process down there in Mexico?
Yeah, a bit. I know that they are, really into trying, like, it's a very what you see is what you get environment. So, they have warehouses down there, and I don't think that I doubt that they're temperature controlled in any capacity. And the aging times are far shorter, I mean, compared to bourbon. So you can see your results fairly quickly. And that right there tells you that you don't really need a lot of the other atmospheric type adjustments because the flavor imparts so quickly.
Well, and I think also they're not really trying to impart a lot of flavor with Reposado. We're just talking like 3 to 6 months. I mean, they're just trying to just rest it.
Right. They don't want to disguise it. It's like I said, it's not like bourbon or something like that where we want to do it for a really long time. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to hop off here. 10:30 my time.
We appreciate the heck out of having you.
Yeah, happy to be here. It's always fun talking about it. I like being out of the lab and being able to talk to people, and I wish I could see more faces, but I guess that's how this works.
That's fair.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and end the stream real quick so that we can talk real quick, and then we'll get right back to it. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we'll start a separate stream after this, guys, so give us a few minutes to talk to Shaylyn, and then we'll be back after.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.